Hello, everyone. We are going to, gosh, people are coming in so quickly. We already have 3 screens worth of people. So I'm going to give it just another minute or two so that all of our friends can join us. Um, it's so nice to see
Carol,
so many of you here today. Yes.
put it to this.
What? The remote.
Goodness. So fun. Marie, you're already sending greetings, phonetic greetings. Stephen, can you see that?
No. What's this? I'll look down.
In the chat.
Hold on, let me expand the screen. I have all my notes and things here. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people. Hello. I'm not nervous, I swear.
You're fine. Hey, Stephen, can I rename you? Is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, Cloud
Okay.
Choral. So that's
Okay.
yeah, that's my choral program.
Okay. I can name you.
Tome Gama.
I love it. There we go. Well, I think we have a lot of people here and more people coming, so I will continue to let people in. But I think we should go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I am going to do my best to introduce all of this and also let all of the people in who are coming in, which is such a wonderful challenge to have. My name, for those of you who don't know, is Catherine Harsha. I am the Artistic Director of Programming at Encore Creativity for Older Adults. As you all know by now, there is no more interim in front of my title, and I'm just delighted to be here and serving Encore. And we are all part of the Masterclass series that Encore Creativity puts together. And we are pleased to present this Masterclass this evening in partnership with AARP. So we're delighted to have all of you here. And tonight's guest, who I know you're going to love, is Stephen Carroll. Stephen is an Irish conductor, entrepreneur, and speaker based in New York City now, but still fully Irish. As founder of All Voices Heard, he creates innovative programs in integrating choral singing with sign language and braille for truly inclusive experiences. The founder of Ireland's Claddagh Chamber Choir, Stephen has led international tours while implementing professional development initiatives. His achievements include co-producing an Irish television special and conducting the Philharmonic Chorus of Tokyo. Stephen continues expanding his global impact through accessible music making. Stephen, in fact, is set to expand his global reach with projects like the Wild Atlantic Choral Festival, which will bring hundreds of singers from around the world to Ireland. He continues to push the boundaries of what music can achieve, bridging cultures and communities while leaving a lasting impact on the international stage. In addition, Stephen will be helping lead many of us through Ireland this summer through his work with Firebird Tours. So, Stephen, you work everywhere and doing so much, and we are delighted that you are sharing with us this evening.
Well, thanks so much for the lovely humble introduction. So I'm Stephen. I'm a conductor. I work in choir tours and choir production. And I'm definitely not a lecturer. So this is something out of my wheelhouse, but luckily there's a lot of topics that I'll be covering this evening that I'm quite passionate about. But yeah, so it's been fun pulling this all together and dusting off some cobwebs. I would have done a lot of this type of stuff during COVID. So thanks very much to Encore and Catherine for inviting me in. And yeah, so I have 8 different chapters that we're going to cover this evening or this day or this morning if you're tuning in from different parts of America or the world, or if it's pre-recorded. But you're all very welcome. Fáilte is welcome in Irish, or as we call it in Ireland, Gaeilge, Oscailge in Irish. So we're going to be covering the history and evolution of Irish music. So I'm just going to get cracked. I'm just going to crack into it. And as I was saying, I'm not a lecturer, but this is something I really like. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you're coming to Ireland, I hope that it informs you of the musical landscape that exists in Ireland now. So, as I was saying, the history and evolution of Irish music, a journey through chant, tradition, innovation, and voice. Welcome, Fáilte. I'm glad you're here. So our first topic, origins, instruments, and the Irish harp. So the Irish harp is massive in Ireland. We all love the harp. So I found it surprisingly difficult to name this presentation. Irish music is vast, yet fragmented, filled with what may seem like disjointed traditions. But in shaping tonight's 8 chapters, I've chosen pockets of Irish musical culture that, when viewed together, form a clearer picture of who we are as Irish people. You'll get a sense of why certain aspects of Irish music are deeply developed and why others remain in their infancy. We'll begin at the root of it all, a short introduction to the music of early Ireland. So the Celts arrived in Ireland from the east in 22 AD. It's believed that music, as we understand it, first came to Ireland with the Celts in 22 AD. The Celts were not a single tribe, but a collection of cultures that spread across much of Europe. They brought with them a rich mythological tradition, deeply tied to nature, ritual, and oral storytelling, all of which wove their way into early Irish music. There's no single origin story, but we know music held a sacred role in Celtic society. Druids, poets, musicians, they were all revered by ancient Irish society. Some stories suggest that the harp, or an early version of it, arrived via trade routes that extended from North Africa and the Middle East through Spain and the British Isles. The British Isles are Ireland and the UK, and the UK is made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. This is one way scholars explain the visual similarity between the Irish harp and older lyres from Egypt and Mesopotamia. It also explains the use of metal strings, an unusual choice that gave the Irish harp its unique bell-like tone, which we're going to hear in a minute. So Ireland has an oral a tradition. So we learned by rote. That's what you'd call it in America. So we learned by, repetition and things. So unlike in England or continental Europe, early Irish music wasn't written down. It was passed orally through imitation and repetition, which is funny because when I first became a choral conductor, that was my kind of go-to thing. I learned how to sing by imitating other singers, and I taught music in my early years by repetition, which is, in my blood. So we learn music, we traditionally learned music by ear. This method lasted well into the 18th century and formed the basis for our strong oral tradition today. But much of that tradition would have been lost if not for the 19th century collectors. So as I was saying, Irish traditional music and Irish melodies, a lot would have died by, just being lost. So for example, when I was a child, my grandmother would sit me on her knee and she'd sing these Irish lullabies and things, and some which I still remember today, but there's obviously ones I didn't. And this over hundreds of years, Irish melodies will be are lost. So kind of, I hate to say it, but like there's probably some of the most beautiful Irish melodies are disappeared, never to be found again, unless some sort of technology comes along and we can trace back sounds. So in the 19th century, collectors, the first collector was Edward Bunting. So his job was to go around the island of Ireland and collect songs. So he would go with his manuscript and with his pencil, and he'd write down the basic melody of the tunes, and he made a book. And he was commissioned to do that. It started in 1792 at the Belfast Harp Festival, and it helped preserve the legacy of Ireland's lasting itinerant harpists. So they're the harpists that would have traveled around playing at these festivals. He transcribed hundreds of pieces and documented performance styles, stories. A lot of Irish music is about stories, and even fingering techniques. So that's the way you play the harp. His work and that later of collectors like Francis O'Neill and George Petrie is the reason we can study this music at all. So without them, there'd be a lot more music missing. The Irish harp. The harp is Ireland's oldest national symbol. So when you come and you exchange your dollars for euros in August, you'll see that there's a lot of harps and other people on our currency. It's the national symbol for our country. It predates even the shamrock, the leprechaun, the rainbow, the pot of gold, all that stuff. The harp is the number one. Known for its early forms as the crwt or clarsach. So they would have been older versions of the harp. The Irish harp was a wire strung and played with long fingernails rather than pads of the fingers. So when you go to the symphony in 2025, or hundreds of years ago, after the Irish harp, they play with the pads of their fingers rather than their nails. So we had to grow our nails out and play the harp. Its bright, resonant sound made it suitable for both noble courts and sacred ceremonies. The connection to the East is speculative, but fascinating. The harp's design, curved pillar, sound box, and wired strings aligns more with Egyptian and Persian lyres than the wooden gut string harp found elsewhere in Europe. Whether the influence came directly through trade or over time via Spain and France, it's clear that the harp evolved into something uniquely Irish. Harpists were highly regarded, part poet, part historian, part entertainer. So they'd write music, they'd sing along with the harp, they'd tell the story, the tragedy of whatever they were playing about, and they were there to entertain as well. They held prestigious positions at Gaelic courts and were often protected by law. So if you're trying to escape the law, maybe become a harpist. So David Murphy, he was one such harpist in the 17th century, born in County Mayo. If anyone knows their counties of Ireland, County Mayo, there's a big rivalry. I'm from the west of Ireland. I'm from a place called Galway, which I call the capital of the west of Ireland. But this guy was from County Mayo. He rose through the bardic tradition and eventually served as the household harper for Theobald Burke, the Earl of Mayo. So he would have been the King of Mayo. The piece, Lord Mayo, was reportedly written after Murphy had fallen out with his patron and sought forgiveness through music. So he got fired, he got let go. And according to the legend, he composed the air would be the song, and sang it and played it outside of the Lord's window, moving him enough so that he welcomed David Murphy back into his house. So he got fired, he played a song, and he came, he went outside his window, played the harp and sang, and he got welcomed back. Some versions of the story say Turlough O'Carolan, who's a very famous harpist, played a role in this rivalry, claimed the piece for himself and critique in his style. So there was some beef back then between Irish harpists. Key instruments of Gaelic Ireland, the crwt, which would have been a small harp, possibly for travel or accompaniment. So they take the crwt around the clarsach, would have been the bigger harp, which you'd see in the picture there. Wire strung, used by professional court musicians. A timpan would have been a stringed instrument played with a bow similar to a violin. So there's an early fiddle. And a faddan, then we have Irish flutes. So I'm going to play an Irish song here, and just let me know if you can hear it or not. So you'll hear the difference between a concert harp and an Irish harp, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's mythical, and oh, I love it. You hear it? So she cut her fingernails a little bit shorter than they would have hundreds of years ago in Ireland. But yeah, the harp is very famous instrument here, or in Ireland. I'm in New York. Moving on now, we're going to have a look at chant and polyphony. So we're moving from secular music, which we just heard, to sacred, to the musical life of early Irish church and its influence both at home and abroad. So Gallican chant is 10th century chant. By the 10th century, Irish music had developed a strong connection to sacred practices. One of the primary musical languages of the Irish church was Gallican chant, a liturgical tradition that flourished in the British Isles and northern France before the imposition of Gregorian chant, standardized by Rome. So Rome being the center of the Catholic Church. Gallican chant is believed to have been more ornamented in rhythm than Gregorian chant. It emphasizes local variation. Chants were adapted to fit the needs of the regional monastic communities. Ireland, with its distinctive traditions and isolated geography, preserved many of these pre-Gregorian forms longer than elsewhere in Europe. Key point here, music was a form of devotion, but also a tool for preserving theology, scripture, and memory. It was sung, not spoken, and in the early Irish monastic culture, deeply learned, often isolated, chant was central to the daily ritual. Irish monks, Helias and Aaron Scotus. Irish monks didn't just preserve chant, they exported it. During the early medieval period, Irish religious figures became some of Europe's great cultural ambassadors. Not Bono, but Helias and Aaron Scotus, if there's any U2 fans here. They're Irish. We might get to that later on. As I said, this is quite disjuncted. There's different, we're moving through the timeline here. Two figures that stand out, were Helias of Cologne. He was the Irish Benedictine monk who became abbot of the monastery of St. Pantaleon in Cologne in around the 11th century. And he was instrumental in introducing Roman chant to German lands, effectively linking Irish liturgical traditions to broader continental reforms. And then Aaron Scotus was another Irish monk active in Germany, likely associated with the Abbey of St. Martin in Cologne, and he composed and notated Gregorian chant. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is a lot of people bringing music to Ireland. And there's a few cases, as we get closer to today's day and age, we start to see the music going back. But that's just one of the, I suppose, opposites of, Irish people actually going abroad. Christchurch Cathedral in Dublin is one of Ireland's most famous churches. Back home, by the 12th century, Christchurch Cathedral in Dublin had become a major centre of sacred music. But despite being a spiritual hub, it wasn't necessarily progressive in musical terms. Polyphony, the practice of singing in multiple independent melodic lines. We all know and love Palestrina. In fact, it was forbidden to sing music like that in some contexts. According to records, monks caught singing in duplicate tones, which are singing polyphony, were punished. Often they were fasted on bread and water, and the logic was theological. Polyphony could distract them from the clarity of the text, and they needed to sit there and understand the text, and the music was this distraction, punishable by being given bread and water. It tells us a lot about the period in Ireland. Musical beauty was acceptable only if it served the scripture. Anything too experimental was seen as indulgent, which, as an Irish person living in 2025, that type of thing still exists. Yeah, too experimental. No, we won't do that. You'll see it. It's funny. Early polyphony. There is a man called Lorcan O'Toole. He was the Archbishop of Dublin in the 1100s, and he was later canonized as Saint Lawrence O'Toole, and he was a pivotal figure in Irish sacred culture. Lorcan was a reformer. He brought Augustinian canons to Christchurch Cathedral in Dublin, replacing older orders and bringing with them new liturgical music practices from France and England. He is said to have introduced what we call sweet measures into the cathedral's worship, believed to be a term used for polyphonic practice. So it was the same thing, just a new name, and he reformed that era. Around this time, we don't have too many records around this time, but there is one piece of chant, one piece of Irish polyphony that we have from the 12th century, which I'll play for you now. Polyphony in the 12th century, towards the end of the 1100s, this was a turning point. Polyphony began to be cautiously welcomed in elite church settings. And from this era, we get one of the earliest known examples of Irish polyphony, the manuscript Cormacus Scripsit. So I'd like you to have a listen to that. And just, maybe if you're familiar with other types of polyphony, Palestrina, for example, who's the most prolific composer from around this time. And just listen to the similarities and try contextualize it against the harp that you just heard, and try connect the dots, which might be difficult, but anyway, have a listen to this. It's quite gorgeous. So it's gorgeous and short. So the next one we're going to have a look at is the next chapter we're moving on to is sean-nós singing. So sean-nós singing is our old style of singing. You'll probably recognize it when you hear it. So sean-nós means old style, but it refers to much more than age. It's vocal art form rooted in centuries of unbroken oral tradition that we spoke about earlier. It's not a performance genre in the classical sense. There's no spotlights, no formal stage. This is music sung at a wake of a person that's died, in a kitchen, or on a quiet walk. Sean-nós, old style singing, is solo, unaccompanied, and deeply ornamented. So lots of decorative notes. Every sean-nós singer is different. Melodies stretch and bend freely, ignoring bar lines and time signatures. The rhythm follows the emotion of the singer, not the clock. And the words, often in Irish, or as we call it in Ireland, Gaeilge, carries layers of poetic imagery, personal longing, and memory of those who've gone before us. So our Irish music is either about, loving someone and not being loved back, death, famine, hunger, all that type of stuff, all those lovely things. We're very different now. We do have lovely food. Each performance is unique. No two versions of sean-nós are the same, even from the same singer. Same could be said about choral music sometimes, but we won't talk about that. The ornamentation is improvised, passed down by ear, and shaped by personal emotion. Cultural roots. Sean-nós has been passed from generation to generation within families and rural communities, particularly in the Gaeltacht areas, there's more than one, where Irish remains the primary spoken language. So there's one area in particular that I know quite well. It's called Connemara, which is on the west coast of Ireland. There's Donegal and there's parts of Munster. So Donegal is in the northwest part of Ireland and Munster is the south, and they all have their own distinctive styles. It's not just a musical tradition, it's a cultural. Sean-nós songs preserved folklore, place names, historical events, and local identity. They often speak of love, exile, betrayal, grief, or reverence for the land. As I said, I forgot reverence of the land. We like singing about our beautiful green landscape with waves, the sea, bashing, taking the skin off your face type of weather. So let's talk about our regional styles. Connemara, the most widely recognized style today, flowing, highly ornamented, and free in rhythm. It's intensely emotional and melodic. Famous singers are Joe Heaney and Joseph O'Haney, who helped bring sean-nós to international audiences. I'm going to play you a video of a sean-nós singer in Connemara in the West with this regional style. So hold that thought as I move on to the other ones. Donegal is less ornamented, more rhythmic and speech-like. We know that in choral music as well, that if you sing the music the way the text informs you, you generally sing it better. So this is very much based around the speech, and it's influenced by the Donegal in the northwest part of Ireland. Their style is influenced by the proximity to Ulster, Scots ballad tradition. So Ulster and Scotland, Ireland and Scotland have very similar music traditions as well. So this, out of the sean-nós style of singing, will be most linked to the Scots. The phrasing tends to be tighter, and there's more of a narrative drive to the delivery. Where we know in Connemara it's a bit more laid back and it's free and really emotional, where Donegal is a bit more driven forward. Munster, known for its lyrical beauty, like their accents. They have very lyrical accents in the south of the country of Ireland, and a slightly more structured rhythmic sense. Ornamentation is still present, but not as dense as Connemara. So Connemara is the party. There's a musicality here that borders on chant at times. Traditionally, sean-nós singing was not for performance, as I was saying. It was for shared at a home, around a fire, family gatherings. It was a traditional Irish sing-song, we'd say. Today, sean-nós has found a new stage with fusion with modern music. We'll talk about Irish traditional music fused with modern elements with Riverdance. We're going to talk about that later. That comes later in time. But you'd hear a lot of sean-nós at things like the Fleadh, Ceol and Heron, which we're going to be going to on the Irish tour, the Oireachtas na Gaeltachta, Ireland's national sean-nós competition, and other world music festivals. But as it evolves, it retains its character, deeply personal, unfiltered, and grounded in language and place. It has such emotional power. What makes sean-nós so striking is the emotion. You don't need to understand Irish to be moved by it. A lot can be said about a lot of traditional music from around the world, but definitely in this case, the tone of the voice, the breath between the phrases, the turn of a note, it all carries meaning. These songs are not just melodies, they're testimonies, fragments of community memory distilled through the individual voice. If you've ever had the chance to hear it live, especially in a small room, you know what I'm talking about. You don't hear it, you feel it. But unfortunately, I won't be singing sean-nós today for you, but there's this video here. It's a bit raw, the footage. It's an older camera and it's a bit shaky. You can hear a bit of wind, but I discovered it and I said, this would be great for this because it really kind of encapsulates, you know, sean-nós in Ireland, in the countryside, the landscape, the sea, and just how natural it is. We saw the harp earlier, but that was a bit more produced, you know, lighting, camera, makeup, all that type of stuff. This is a bit more raw, and that I think that's what sean-nós is. So I hope you enjoy this one.
Just follow me along here. Introduce you now to two people here. So if you just follow me along here, the wilderness of Connemara, as you'll see. Ronan O'Conneilla is a young man from this area. He lives about a mile over the road here, and he's a sean-nós singer. So sean-nós is the traditional style of singing that came down from generation to generation. So Ronan's maternal grandfather and his paternal grandmother won the All-Ireland sean-nós singing competition. So as we say in Ireland, or we say in Irish, he didn't get it from the wind. So it's come down from generation to generation. And he's going to give you a little bar now, 2 verses of a traditional Irish sean-nós song.
نخمشن تراهی ویره نگاه کاری کینا ناسی اگه گل سگه کوریل سگه جنبرون گلیونت مالیانا ehre vakanet malade skana fiumbriana panye am hjornje ho snile me yakhtirelak snile an wa hayana Nile mereon har achab marnego Stafele mochorishe Gahit namrianto Gosiye keamet yana Yemo halino
All right. So you can really hear the, you know, how raw it is. And if he was to sing that again, all those little ornaments would be placed in a different places. So Irish choral music in context. So in some ways, we have a lot of rich history and a lot of great things that date back hundreds of years, lots of strong culture that feeds through our music. But there's also the other side of the coin where certain aspects of Irish choral music is not as developed as other countries, and there's some reasons behind that. So it's important that we cover that as well. To understand why Irish choral music looks the way it does today, with so much creative momentum, but relatively recent formal infrastructure, we have to compare it with England, especially across the medieval and early modern periods. So let's talk about England's choral legacy. In England, the choral tradition benefits from a stable, well-funded Church of England and royal patronage. By the late medieval period, cathedrals were not just religious centers, but musical institutions, employing teams of composers, organists, boy choristers, and lay clerks, so professional adult singers. Places like Westminster Abbey, King's College, Cambridge, and St. Paul's Cathedral nurtured choral composition, vocal technique, and the development of liturgical music. The pipe organ became a central fixture of choral music and was embedded in the cultural fabric. It evolved in tandem with architecture, education, and public ceremony. The Tudor period. So if you know your Tudor anthems, the Tudor period produced figures like Thomas Tallis, William Byrd, and later Henry Purcell, whose polyphonic and sacred works were written for those robust institutions. Ireland at the same time. During the same time frame, Ireland was under colonial pressure, religious, cultural, and political. The English Reformation did not take hold in the same way here in Ireland. Instead, Catholicism remained the faith of the majority, and with it came very different fate for sacred music. So we had these laws called the penal laws, and they were enacted in the 17th century, which severely restricted Catholic practices. So most people in Ireland were Catholics, so we had a lot of restrictions there for our worship at the time. It was illegal to attend or celebrate any mass, so any Catholic services. Catholic cathedrals were either taken over by the Church of Ireland or destroyed. Worship was driven underground, held in forests, barns, or secret mass rocks in the countryside. So they pick a rock along a country road, and that was where they'd have their secret celebrations. So music in this context had no space to flourish publicly. So obviously, because it was kind of underground and behind doors, we couldn't have the grand organ, grand anthems, There was no choirs, no public institutions nurturing composition, no sanctioned organ builders or sacred music commissions for Irish Catholics. Musical expression was preserved mainly through folk traditions, I like the ones we just spoke about, monastic chant, and small scale gatherings. So compare this with England, where cathedrals were built and filled with music. In Ireland, even where cathedrals existed, such as Christ Church and St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, they served primarily the Anglican. So we call them the Protestant, and they would have been the minority at the time in Ireland and not the native Irish population. Organs were rare. Choirs, schools were practically non-existent outside of a few Protestant Anglican institutions. As a result, choral literacy, composition, and rehearsal culture were not simply part of the average Irish musical upbringing. So the long-term effects of that, the lack of infrastructure had long-term consequences. While England nurtured a continuous line of composers, directors, institutions, Ireland saw gaps, silences, and stunted formal development. It wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries, with the easing of the penal laws, those were the laws that banned us from having mass, and later the Gaelic revival, that efforts were made to build an Irish choral tradition, often from scratch. The fact that we now have groups like Chamber Choir Ireland, world-class composers like Michael Midlin and Anuna, who we'll talk about later, and internationally touring ensembles like New Dublin Voices is nothing short of extraordinary. These represent a renaissance, one born out of centuries of support, but centuries of resistance. Sorry, one not born out of centuries of support, but centuries of resistance. Sorry, I told you I'm not a lecturer, but I'm into this stuff. So framing the present. So if we look at Irish choral music today, we see that it's a tradition rising from centuries of suppression, driven by community, passion, and deep-rooted instinct for storytelling through music, which we've touched on a lot today, or this evening, or whatever time we're tuning in at. This context is essential because it shifts the narrative from Ireland catching up to Ireland creating something unique on its own terms. So I just thought that would be good to kind of give you a context of, we've talked about how beautiful, our landscape is and our music and how everything dates back, but there was that kind of area of time that we would have had this choral development. This is where we're kind of bringing it into the choral world. And why it's kind of stunted in places, but it's kind of created kind of entrepreneurial paths. But we're going to step right away from choral music again, and we're going to talk about the session, the session. And this is a very fun part of Irish music. The session. So the session is a modern phenomenon. It dates back at like 100 years, and it was in London, 80 years. As an Irish immigrant here in America, we do kind of flock to Irish bars, Irish events to hear music, to meet other Irish people. And even though we're so connected now with, we're here on Zoom, you're all over America, we still we're eager to engage with our diaspora abroad. So if you could imagine in the 1940s when, people would move to America or move to London and never move home, that these communities were vital, and celebrating our rich music culture was really important. So the session. You might think of it as a jam session, but a session is something different. It's a tradition rooted in oral memory, shared leadership, and spontaneous creativity. So as I was saying, 1940s London, not in a quiet pub in Galway in the west of Ireland or a kitchen on Connemara where we saw that young man sing Sean-nós, but it was in Kentish Town in London. Irish immigrants living and working in a city that was foreign and often unwelcoming began to gather after hours in pubs to play, to reconnect, and to preserve the musical identity they had brought with them. Many left rural areas where music was passed down by ear and the center stone of their community. These gatherings weren't concerts. There was no set list, no conductor, no audience performer divide, just people, young and old, sitting in a circle, swapping tunes, songs, listening carefully, and joining in when they could. What defines a session and its oral participatory character? Sorry, I need some water. There's no scores, no music. Musicians learn by ear. Tunes are short and cyclic. So they're in forms. It's like A, B, A, B. Like the tunes repeat over and over again. And they play it for like 5 to 7 minutes, and people pick it up and start playing it. So, they pick it up by ear. They play it in sets, repeat several times, allowing others to catch on, is what we'd say. There's no single leader, though etiquette often determines who starts a tune. So there would be people that would kind of take okay, let's play this one. Everyone's welcome, from seasoned players to children just learning their first reel. Sessions prioritize connection over perfection. They're social, spiritual, and educational all at once. And the global reach. What's extraordinary is how far the session has traveled. And I've obviously researched it, but I've seen it kind of firsthand. Today, you'll find weekly sessions in New York, Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Melbourne, anywhere the Irish diaspora go. The session exists. But the most beautiful example I've seen of its global reach is in Nagano in Japan, which is in Nagano or Nagoya. It's Nagano in the mountain region in about 3 hours outside of Tokyo on the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. So I went over to Japan in 2023 to film a TV show called Era to Everywhere, which is like Irish culture, but everywhere. And as part of the TV show, we went to a university, a college in the snowy mountains in Nagano. It was really cold. It was really quiet, remote, the kind of place where you at least expect to find Irish traditional music. We were led into a university building, not knowing what to expect. But when they opened the door, the sound hit us, and then we saw them. There was 80 students gathered there for their weekly trad night. So they were filling the room with Irish tunes, Irish dancing. They were teaching each other Irish instruments, and they all owned these Irish instruments. They weren't imitating Irish music. They were participating in it themselves, owning it and bringing it into their own lives and joy. Some of them most of them had never been to Ireland, but they knew the tunes better than a lot of Irish musicians. That's the power of the session. It transcends borders and builds community anywhere. It's crazy. Irish music in Japan, there's so much of it. As for inclusivity, so in recent times, it can be difficult when you're learning an instrument to play it at full speed. So some people started half-paced sessions where people go when they're still learning their instrument, and they can play it at half the speed. So that kind of gives more people access to that type of community without necessarily needing to have, the skill to play at a full tempo. It's great for beginners, people returning to music, children and families looking for low pressure. Yeah, so they're great. And then that's pretty much it on the session. Yeah, I'm going to show you a video, which is going to kind of give you all the other context. It's at the Flackhole na Heron, which on the Encore Irish tour, we're going to be spending a full day here. It's just a couple of streets. There's Irish music all over the place, spontaneous, fun. We call it Crack agus Ceol. Crack is fun in Irish and Ceol is music. So you'll see this here. I was watching this video this morning, and it's just... yeah, it's Irish music, Irish culture and Irish music in a nutshell. Crack agus Ceol. You all hear it well? how they change over and back between a lot of repetition. All right, so this plays over and over again, but as you can see, it's very spontaneous. Some people would know each other in that group, others wouldn't know each other, and it's just, yeah, a lot of it's improvised. It's not about making it sound perfect. It's about the community and fun that surrounds it, and shared endeavor. Now we're getting to more modern day Riverdance, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard Riverdance and seen Riverdance live, or maybe you even remember the Eurovision in 1994 when this exploded all over the world. So it's a music and dance stage show which started out as an interval act at the Eurovision when it was held in Dublin City in 1994. So it's a huge part, it's a landmark moment in Irish cultural history, one that changed how the world perceived Irish music, dance, and identity in general. It's not just a performance, but it was a seismic shift. So it started out as one song, and we're going to watch the whole 7 minutes of it after we talk about it. But after that show happened, and they turned it into a full stage show within a couple of months. So it all began with a 7-minute interval act during the Eurovision Song Contest in Dublin in 1994, as I was saying. The audience expected a pleasant, perhaps familiar cultural performance. What they got was something entirely different. The stage erupted with synchronized footwork, driving rhythms, and a pulsing cinematic score. Michael Flatley and Jean Butler. So Michael Flatley was the main male dancer, and Jean Butler was the main female. Did I say singer or dancer? Yeah, they're both dancers. There were two electrifying dancers, led the way, and the music composed by Bill Whelan. And he'd blend a lot of other global influences into the contemporary orchestration of the music, which is funny because we learned earlier that there's a lot of Middle Eastern and African influences in Irish music. If we look back in historic Ireland, it's funny that as recent as 1994, that's also happening. And today there's fusion there's so much fusion in Irish music, but it was always there, is the point. It wasn't just a display, it was an announcement. Irish culture was no longer niche, nostalgic, or quaint. It was bold, modern, and world-class. The 7 minutes was so compelling that the Riverdance show launched just months later, premiering at the Point Theatre, now called the Three Arena in Dublin, February 1995. So just months later, it was a full stage show. What made Riverdance unique musically was its fusion of traditional and contemporary elements. Whelan didn't simply arrange the old tunes, he created a new musical language. You can hear that across all of his music, not just his Riverdance work. Riverdance also has, if you're looking for some light listening of Irish music, you should listen to Riverdance's Orchestral Suite. That really inspired me when I first heard it. So if you're more into like choral music and things like that, you'd probably have an ear for that. So definitely listen to the Orchestral Riverdance Suite. It's gorgeous. There was a lot of percussion driven beats rooted in the bodhrán, which is an Irish drum. And if you're coming to Ireland, we're all going to build our own bodhrán and bring it back to America. And Irish dance rhythms. And they were layered with cinematic scoring and modern drum kits, which is very different to anything we'd ever seen at that point. The Irish fiddle took center stage. It was lyrical, agile, and expressive, often supported by full string sections. Whelan also introduced the flamenco guitar, Eastern Europe folk elements, as we were talking about earlier, and even jazz harmonies into the score. So you'll hear it now in a few minutes, and I'm telling you, you'll be getting goosebumps everywhere It's really cool. It wasn't trad in a pure sense. It was trad reimagined for a global stage. It was a cultural remix. Riverdance's choreography was just as revolutionary. Traditional Irish dance was known for its rigid posture, precise footwork, and lack of upper body movement. You ever see Irish dancers, their arms are by their sides and their legs are able to stretch a lot higher than mine. But Michael Flatley kind of changed that. He had a more like expressive upper body, and he was using more expressive gestures, freer gestures, looser clothing. It was really reimagined. He exploded that form. And as I was saying, he introduced broad-armed gestures, dramatic chest lifts, the intensity of competitive sport. He turned Irish dance into spectacle without diluting its core. And then Gene Butler's presence, meanwhile, brought elegance, precision, and a grounded sense of tradition. Their contrasting styles created a magnetic tension on stage, which you'll see now in just a moment. And beyond the leads, the ensemble, rows of dancers moving in perfect unison, became iconic. The signature line dance, which we'll see, where they had 20 Irish dancers dancing at the same time. It became a global symbol of Irish unity and force. Yeah, and it's toured all over the world. Millions of people across 40 countries. It broke box office records in America, the US, Europe, Australia, and Asia. Cast performed at the Oscars, the Royal Variety Performance, and even at the Beijing Great Hall of the People. For many international audiences, Riverdance was their first exposure to Irish traditional music and dance, and it blew the doors open. And then you saw like step dance and Irish dance in schools pop up in places like Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Cape Town. You know, probably the reason why all those kids were playing Irish music was tied back to Riverdance. And so much other shows spun off Riverdance, like Lord of the Dance and Celtic Woman. There's all these different Irish stage shows. Maybe you've, when they've come to tour in America, you went to see them. And then another group we're going to talk about was Anuna, who were the choir in Riverdance, and they've done some very interesting things. They started before Riverdance. I think Riverdance was their big break, and then eventually they broke away and started doing their own more contemporary Irish stuff, because the Riverdance show, the only thing that's changed about the Riverdance show is the cast. So they're all young, so they kind of filter people in, but it's pretty much the same show. But what Anuna have done, they've moved away from that and done their own thing. More importantly, Riverdance gave young Irish artists a sense of pride and permission to embrace their tradition, but also to innovate, remix, and dream big. So that's Riverdance. We're going to have a listen to it. So sit back, enjoy this. This is probably the most famous Irish video ever.
And now, my friends, Riverdance, a full-bodied orchestral dance piece composed by Bill Whelan, involving traditional Irish dancers, the Celtic Choir Anuna, and the magical dance partnership of Gene Butler and Michael Flatley.
Ladies and gentlemen, Riverdance.
Seismic. That should be on all of your playlists. It's I'm like sweating listening to that. So the choir you heard at the start was Anuna. So you can see that they're quite that they have medieval roots. They obviously have musical fusion. You saw them singing with dancers, and they have a very distinctive style, which we'll dive into now. Yeah, from the thunderous energy of Riverdance, which we just witnessed, we now move into something much more introspective, yet equally powerful. This is the world of Anuna, Ireland's most distinctive vocal ensemble, and a group that has reshaped how we think about Irish choral music. I was very lucky to sing with Anuna for a period in 2017, 2018. It was a great group to sing with. So the origins of Anuna. Anuna were founded in 1987 by composer, conductor, well, he's not a conductor, but artistic director and visionary Michael McGlynn. At the time, Ireland's choral scene was still developing, and there were some fine choirs, but few groups that could be described as uniquely Irish in identity or sound. And the same thing is true today. Like his music, like you can hear Ireland in it. There's a group in Japan that I work with, and they're a tribute group of Anuna, and they're called Anona. Like it has reached everywhere, and there's another one being set up in Korea, and they just sing his music. McLean wanted to change that. Irish choral music, a lot of it was a reflection of what was going on in the UK and in Europe, but he kind of gave Ireland a choral sound. He envisioned a group that would merge the sound of early sacred chant with the emotional depth of Irish traditional music and the discipline of the classical choral technique. He created something entirely new, a choral group not bound by genre, period, or language, a group that could sing 9th century Latin hymns, an Irish folk song, or a newly composed piece, make them feel part of the same emotional and sonic sound universe. Anuna's sound is instantly recognizable, and maybe some people here already know the group, but when you hear one of his compositions, especially when it's performed by the group, instantly, it's like, yeah, that's Bono, that's U2. You kind of know the sound. It's modal and unaccompanied a lot of the time, often in free rhythm, ancient Irish melodies with some tight vocal harmonies, solos with ornaments, chant-like delivery. There's a sacred stillness to the tone. Every note feels intentional, weighted, and sacred. Medlin writes much of the repertoire himself. Especially now, there's been a handful that I've seen Anuna perform that aren't Medlin's writing. So he crafts the pieces that sit between eras, inspired by medieval modes that are harmonically rich with layered textures and ambient warmth. They also perform arrangements of traditional Irish songs, but not like the session in the pub. They're slow, introspective, often haunting interpretations that elevate the material into an almost liturgical experience. There's also a big visual aesthetic with Anuna. When you see them perform, it's unlike any other choir. There's no music stands, no formal risers, no clapping between songs. Singers often move in slow processions. They wear black robes, and they have the costume there with the jacket and the white shirt. There's a whole experience. It's like a ritual behind each concert. It's ritual, meditation, rather than a concert. It's revolutionary in the choral world. It invites audiences to listen to them differently, to enter the sound world that they're creating. It's amazing. Riverdance and global recognition. So they got a lot of recognition from Riverdance. They were the opening choir. You heard them sing Cloud Song at the beginning of the video you just heard. That brief moment introduced their sound to millions, 300 million in that instant, and helped establish the emotional depth and spiritual tone of the full Riverdance show. Following that, Anuna began touring internationally, releasing albums and gaining attention across Europe, Northern America, and Asia. They became known not just as a choir, but as an ambassador for Irish sound identity. They have a huge legacy. They have hundreds of singers that have been through Anuna. What else is here? I've covered a lot already from little side notes. Yeah, Madeleine has also developed a choral philosophy focusing on physical presence, storytelling, vocal color, and natural tone, which has influenced choirs all over the world. Like when I go to the ACDA conference, there's always music by him set. And when you go to Japan or China, you hear these people sing his music. Yeah, and it's an evolving language. It's changed a lot. So we're going to have a listen to one of his pieces. Which one have I picked? Ah, Media Vita. This is another old video. You know, it's one of those very few videos in like this kind of poor quality that can give you goosebumps. So Media Vita is chant, and it has that kind of modern twist to it that we spoke about. Modern influences. Let's keep on. Move on to our last chapter. Irish choral music today. International recognition. Irish choirs now compete and win on global stages. Some of our choirs have won the Choir of the World competition in Clondalkin in Wales. They've won Grand Prix all over Europe. I brought my choir to Japan. They were the first Irish choir to go to Japan. Leading composers like Madeleine, Rona Clark, Sean Doherty, his music has been performed at national and American conferences, and they're really starting to reshape the choral landscape in Ireland internationally. Premier ensembles like New Dublin Voices, the UCD Choral Scholars, which I'll close my presentation out today with, and then Claddagh Chamber Choir. That's my choir. I include them because we're definitely up there with one of the better amateur choirs in Ireland, and we're from the west of Ireland, so I try to give them that a recognition. And then post-2020 innovation, so digital collaborations and virtual performances. So we've kind of in kind of funny ways, we've kind of gotten our name out there during COVID. You know, necessity, and we definitely needed that, or we definitely need that for choral music in Ireland, is the mother of invention. And yeah, there's been some funny ways of how COVID was kind of good for Irish choral music, obviously, other than the fact that we couldn't sing together and all the other stuff that came with it. But yeah, I want to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to play you one last video, and this is of UCD choral scholars, and it's a song called Magillamar. And if you have some questions, I definitely do put them in. But this is very heavy. We don't have too much time left. And again, I'm not a lecturer, and my specialty is kind of modern day Irish choral music. So if you're looking for good answers, then ask me about stuff in today's day and age. I'm a real historian of the history that I've lived. So this is Magillamar, my gallant hero, and this is the UCD Choral Scholars, another very famous video of Irish music. right. I've been reading through all the comments that you've been putting in throughout the session. It's nice to see them. Thanks so much for listening, and looking forward to diving into some questions now. And if you're going to be with us in August, then absolutely fantastic. Now, I do think there still is a few days if you're on the fence to jump in. But yeah, I'm dying to meet you all. And yeah, thanks for listening. And hopefully you found some of the things useful. So we start to dive into some questions, Catherine, or
Absolutely. There were a
All
couple questions early on. Well, one, Sheila was saying her grandparents are from, did you read this? Galway?
from Galway,
And
yeah. I'm
yeah.
Ballinasloe and Tuam, yeah. That's crazy. Such a small world.
I'm glad that you pronounced those. I didn't know for sure how to say. And Marie says she knows a folks dance.
From Inisheer. Wow, that's really kind of out there. That's on one of the Aran Islands. I've never actually been to Inisheer. I've been to Inishmeon and Inishmore. Inisheer is one of the smaller islands. So that's in the depths of Gaeltacht. It's an island.
That's amazing.
Those islands, you get stuck on them as well. I got stuck on an island a few months ago, and you could be there for days because once the waves get too big, you're kind of there, which is nice. You know, it's kind of like the Wi-Fi can't get you. No, you can't do anything but just be there and be human. It's quite a beautiful part of the world.
Sounds amazing. Let's see. Ruby shared that she is heading to Ireland next week.
Oh, you're gonna have a great time. The weather's been good, so I think you might get lucky. But I know from living here in New York, sometimes the rain and a bit of mild weather isn't so bad. You know, it isn't as humid there. So I hope you have a great time.
I wondered about Sean Tyrrell. What do you know of him?
Sean Tyrrell, is it?
I think so. Yeah.
We didn't talk about him today, did we?
No,
Okay, I was like, good.
just a voice that I love. And
Sean Tyrrell, I'll have to look him up. Is he in like Celtic Thunder or any of those groups or anything like that? Or
I don't know. I've only heard him solo. He has a number of CDs.
Tyrrell. And he's an Irish singer?
Tyrrell, yes.
Heck. Let me check it up here really quick.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, some of those Irish singers are great. Sean Tyrrell. Oh yeah. He passed a few years ago. He was an Irish singer. He played in a few bands. He plays the guitar and sing. He's from County Clare. I think I recognize some of the stuff there that he's done. You're a fan of him?
A big fan, but did you just say he passed?
Passed in 2021 is what it's saying here. Yeah, October 30th, 2021.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. He was 78. Yeah. Singer and guitarist from Ireland. Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I wrote something. It's about the sign language. I noticed that you had said, what's your involvement with the sign language? Because it was my first language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have very basic sign language. I grew up with my uncle who's almost fully deaf. So I'd have, how are you? I'm fine, and the different things like that. And we'd spell our names and things like that.
Yeah.
Then I got into choral music, and I started inviting him to come to our concerts and translate some of the pieces into Irish Sign Language. And then during COVID, I mentioned that there were some innovations that happened during COVID. So I started working with a company called Microsoft.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all know Microsoft. It's one of the biggest tech companies in the world. But they took on my at the time, I had a really small kind of music school in Ireland, and they registered me as one of their suppliers because I could create these virtual choir videos. We went on, we did some in the European headquarters in Ireland, and we did a Microsoft Global virtual choir, and it went on to be the most internally viewed video ever in Microsoft as of December 2021. So then I started getting invited to different places. I got invited to Monaco, and I got invited to Las Vegas and a few other places. And I really wanted to make the experience more inclusive. And I really thought long and hard, how it was called All Voices Heard. It still is called All Voices Heard.
Yeah.
I was like, how can we ensure that everyone's voice is represented? You know, and it was really important for Microsoft, but it's also very important for me. So we got Braille editions of the score, so people that were visually impaired could read along with the lyrics. And then also we taught the people in the crowd the chorus of things like "Here Comes the Sun," "You Raise Me Up." So it was like a visual and like a vision and soundscape of inclusivity. So, and it was very, very well received. So that's what I like to do when I do those workshops, is try to include a little bit of a sign language in it. And there's a really cool video I seen recently of a choir, and they were singing and using sign language, and then all of a sudden the music stopped and the sign language kept going, and it was you could just really see the power of the sign language. So it's something I'm very interested in, but unfortunately I'm not as fluent as you are in it. But that's a story behind that.
Both my parents, thank you very much, and that's
Wow.
why it was my first language, because both my parents were deaf, and that's beautiful. I can really appreciate all the music stopping, and then it's welcome, and then just sign language. It's so beautiful, you know. I love it. Thank you
Pretty
so
gorgeous.
much.
Thanks for asking that. I'm delighted that I could talk about that.
Sure.
Stephen,
Yes.
my husband Bill is an honorary professor at NUI, University of Galway.
Oh, really?
He does research with Murray Scott. I don't know if you know the name.
Murray Scott, I don't.
And we have been to Galway 6 times, and I could tell everyone gathered the people of Ireland are incredible. And if you walk into a pub, it will be like they have known you all your life, because they will be happy to have you sing along, and by the time you leave, you'll know the song.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Galway, I'm biased, but I absolutely love Galway. It's a very friendly city. It's a very walkable city. There's lots of music. There's a great university, and the great thing about it being like a small city with a university population is that there's just such a vibrancy about the town. And when people come back in the fall for college, it just adds that youthful energy, and it kind of gives Galway that kind of vibrancy. It's such a gorgeous place, and obviously then we're in such close proximity to Connemara, which we talked about earlier with the Shannon singing, which is a Irish speaking region. So it's a lot of people speak Irish. A lot of people are kind of very authentically Irish. We probably have the most Irish speakers in the country in Galway. We have our national broadcaster, our TV channel, based a couple of miles outside of Galway city as well. So it's a real hub for artistry, for music, for education, for food, for pints of Guinness, everything, you name it. So that's such a great connection. That's really cool, Bill. I've worked with the university there as well. It's great, and it's great to have it at our doorstep as well in the west of Ireland. I might hit some of the written comments before we go back to.
I was going to say, Stephen, we have time for a few more questions, and there's definitely some in the comments. So one of them is from Lee, who asked, is it true that much of rock and roll is rooted in older Irish music?
Potentially. There's so much influences in Irish music, which we heard. Some come from the Middle East, some come from Africa. A lot is dependent on drums and things like that, which is also with rock and roll. There's a lot of percussive support there for the vocalists. So that's the first I've heard of it, but it definitely makes sense to me, and I'm definitely going to look into that.
There's a question from Joby that is, what is the name of the drum in the last video?
Oh, I'm going to type it in here. Oops, I'm going to stop sharing screen. Right, it's called a bodhran, Bodhran. And if you're coming to Ireland, we're all going to build a bodhran. So it's goat skin over wood, and you get to bring it back. So make sure you leave room in your suitcase first. We're going to do a workshop. So yeah, that's called a bodhran.
Awesome. Maureen is asking, is there an organization like Encore in Ireland focused on the older population?
Yep. There is a choir called the Forget-Me-Nots, and we're going to be working with them in Ireland. There is an organization called Age and Opportunity, and it does music, it does arts, it does community services for people for the aging population, and we're also going to be linked in with them for some of our engagements in Ireland as well.
Awesome. These next two are kind of linked. One of them is music education emphasized in the schools? And are Irish people naturally musical, like you, Stephen, or do kids receive musical training early on?
Not really. That's one of the flaws that we have is our like we don't have choir as a subject in Ireland. I studied music outside of school, so I had to pay to do music lessons outside of school and then sit my end of school exams externally from the school and things like that. So that's one of the drawbacks. We're probably one of the we have 5 state-funded music schools outside of sorry, 5 state funded music schools across the board. But if we put that down to like per capita, as in like, you know, for the size of population, we're like well below the European average. So yeah, but as we're saying, there's other things like our traditional music, you know, we're really good at that, but like the kind of formal music education, we're kind of lacking. I went to study choral conducting in Los Angeles because there was nothing for me in Ireland that would kind of scratch that itch that I had at the time.
The next question is also from Joby. How much of Irish choral music is in Irish and how much is in English?
That's a very good question. I'd say, that's a very hard question. There's a lot of both. That's something that maybe like a extreme, like someone very deep in like the librarian world might know. I've a friend that has done a lot. He's doing his doctoral thesis on Irish choral music, so that'd be a good question for him. But I'd say I'd say there's a lot of both. There's a lot of it that is kind of hard to access and things like that. They're in handwritten scores, but there's an ample amount of music in Irish and in England and in English from the island of Ireland.
And it looks like one last question in the chat. Lots of accolades, Stephen, and lots of people saying thank you. But one last question that we'll address. Can you speak to the group Celtic Women and their place in bringing Irish music to America?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. Can you speak to the group, the Celtic Women? Do you
Yeah.
know this group? Yeah.
Celtic
And
Women, yeah.
what their place and their role in bringing Irish music to America?
So a lot of people immigrated to America. Hopefully I'm answering this right. And if anyone can find me in one of the Celtic Women videos, I will sing you a song or something. I worked with Celtic Women before in some of their music videos. But a lot of people moved to America you know, from the famine onwards. And so there's like a lot of people and there's some people in this group that have Irish ancestry, but it really kind of fills that void, those old Irish ballads, all those Irish songs, all the Irish culture, and yeah, it just really it kind of took off in America. Is that what you're asking, or are you asking me to go speak to them to get them to America? I'm not sure.
I feel like both would be good options.
Yeah, well, they're always in America, so keep an eye out. They always join America and they sell out quick. So keep an eye.
Fantastic. Stephen, thank you so much for all of this incredible information. The musical examples were amazing. And now I think those of us who get to go to Ireland this summer are even more excited. And those of us who don't get to go to Ireland got such a wonderful experience this evening. It's so great for all of us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anytime, y'all seem to still be here. So thank you so much for staying and listening. And I'm sure I'll see you all again. And have a great evening, day, wherever you might be. And yeah, keep on listening to Irish music. It's really beautiful. And explore the world through music cultures. You learn a lot without needing to know a lot just by listening. So good night. As we'd say in Ireland, slán, agus gur míle maith. Goodbye and thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Bye. Have
Good
a nice evening.
night.
Bye, 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 bye.